Welcome to MCN and welcome to our series where we talk about the bikes that we actually buy. Now, usually it's Nevesy that's got someone in the hot seat, but today we have the legend that is Michael Neves with the legend that is the Suzuki GSXR 750. Before we get talking about this bike, why you bought it and what you've done to it, tell us a bit about your recent buying history and the last few bikes you've had in your garage.
Okay, well, I haven't had that many because we get fed with lots of hot and cold running test bikes, don't we?
Yep.
But the last bike I owned, if you can call it a motorcycle, is a T-Max, Yamaha T-Max.
Yep.
I had the 2017 T-Max and I kept that for a few years. I sold it to a friend during lockdown and I have every intention of replacing it. But because all of our work, the way we worked was different, we didn't need to actually physically come into the office anymore. I ended up not getting one. So that's still on the wish list. I've had access to an S1000RR race bike since 2011. Been sponsored to race various iterations of that bike over the years. I've never actually owned it. So the last actual motorcycle I owned with my own money before this was in year 2000, Ducati 916. And then when I joined MCN, really, I kind of just rode test bikes all the time. So this is a big deal for me. This is the first proper motorcycle I bought for 24 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the obvious question's got to be is, why this and why now?
Okay, well, very interesting you say that. We ride lots of new bikes all the time and they're fantastic. But my brother's got a similar one of these. He's got a K5 and a K9. And I rode them recently and I realised that there's nothing like this now that you can buy. So sports bikes have either gone really extreme and expensive, like S1000RRs and Blades and Panigales, or built down to a price like GSX-8Rs and R7s, as good as they are. There's nothing that delivers the kind of purity of this bike. You know, there's no middleweight sports bikes that are inline fours now. Right, saying that. I know you've got the MV F3 800,
Yeah.
but there's no inline fours. You've got the Panigale V2, but they're kind of loaded with electronics
And they're expensive.
very expensive. So I wanted to buy one of these while I could still find a decent one, while it was still sort of relatively low mileage, still felt like new, and also from a road testing point of view, it's a good bar to have.
Yep.
So although this is a sports bike, it's still interesting in that it's not watered down at all. Okay, it's got some probably Euro 2 or something, whatever, exhaust on it, but it's got no electronics or anything like that. So it's a good bar for me. You know, when I go and ride a GSX-8R, as good as it is, really, I know it's not as good as it could be. You know, so it's a nice leveler for me. Also, it's a cliche with sports bikes. The 750 is the kind of the best balance of power and handling. It's fast. You know we've tested these before with my MCN hat on. We've had
Ladybird,
thank you. We've had 182 GPS at one of these at Nardo Speed Ring in Italy. They'll go almost as fast as 1,000 round a track. An old generation one, we'll come on to that. But it's really easy to ride. It feels like a 600 Supersport bike in terms of its reviness and its agility and its fun factor, but it's just got that little bit more torque, so you're not actually banging through the gears all the time. You can ride it a little bit lazily. And the other reason I bought it is because it seems, through no real reason, ever since I started riding my first big bike in 1988, way before you were born, 750s seem to have sort of been a constant through my biking career. So I had a GSX-R 750 Slingshot J model in 1988, which I raced and crashed straight away. And then loved 750s because of my biking hero, Kevin Schwantz. He used to race them in AMA, the transatlantic races, at Daytona, you know, following James Whittam and watching 750s being raced all around the world. And then in my MCN career, I was lucky enough to be at the launches and do group tests of every 750 through the noughties, really. I kind of missed out on the 90s ones. Never rode the kind of, you know, the ones that are big bloated Elvis Presley ones with their garish shell suits and really heavy. Never really did much with the S-Rads, but, you know, from 2000 on, really, when I became an MCN road tester, I've just loved them. I've always hankered after one, and I thought, well, I'm going to bite the bullet and get one.
And they're almost making a comeback as well, considering they're racing in British Supersport and they're eligible for World Supersport, AMA, that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
They're back in. They're back in.
They are, and they're still, although they've been discontinued in the UK and Europe because they don't complies to Euro 4 or 5 or 5 plus. They still sell them in other countries, I think Australia and America, places in Asia.
So I was going to say as well, this looks really crisp. It looks really clean. How many miles has it got on it? What was it like when you picked it up, and what have you done since buying it?
Right, so it's done just over 4,000 miles now.
Oh, wow.
So it's really
Yeah.
low mileage. It's a 2014 L4.
So it's one of the later ones.
Yeah, so 2011 was the last GSX-R, and it stayed the same all the way through its
Yeah.
life, and it's still the same now. So this is the same as a 2011 L1. Lowish mileage. It had 3,800 miles on it. I've only had this a few months, and I'm looking in the classifieds to try and get one that's low mileage and one that's kind of unmarked. Really, that's really, really difficult. And they're all, you know, if you wanted a good one, you're looking at about 8-9 grand, something like that.
yeah.
You can pick this
Yeah.
kind of model and 11 onwards up for 4 or 5, but I looked at a few and they're really sort of ratty around the edges, and I didn't want that. So as luck would have it, a friend of mine owned this bike. He got it from new, and in about 2017 or 18, he took it to Brands and crashed it around Druids. Just a low side, just did a load of damage to the right-hand side of the bike. Lucky enough, it didn't flip. So he took it home with all intentions of repairing it, but life got in the way and he never touched it again. So it was basically sitting in the shed from 2018 until now. So, you know, under thick dust. It was taken apart with the intention of putting it back together. And he said, well, I'll sell this to you. So I went and had a look at it, and it didn't look good at all because, you know, even the clocks weren't on it. So it was a little bit of a risk. He'd bought some replacement panels, but they weren't new ones. They were scuffed as well. So I bought it as a crash damage, basically. So the idea was to make it mechanically perfect and to make it look like new again. So I had every intention of repairing it myself. A friend of mine called Bob Stockley, who helps me out with my racing bikes, who isn't a mechanic as such, but he works on bikes all the time. He's really good at preparing bikes and making bikes look perfect like this. So he volunteered to do it up for me, basically. So he kind of stripped it down to nothing, and then went through a process of kind of putting servicing kind of items on it, bits to make it mechanically perfect, and then bits to make it pretty. So sort of three sort of stages really. And we end up with a bike like this. It is perfect. There's no signs of it's really been ridden in the wet. There's no furred up bolts. It's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, you always do a nice job of looking after a bike.
Yeah, I like a pledge.
So obviously, one thing I'm really interested in is, ever since I've basically known you, ever since I've sort of grown up reading all your stuff in MCN, I've always known you to be someone who rides 1,000. I've never really seen you as someone to be sort of a middleweight rider. So this is essentially a sort of a 600 with a slightly bigger engine in it. How do you find the comfort in it? How do you find it, you know, its usability? And is it enough to truly keep you excited, especially on bigger tracks?
Interesting question, because that's kind of changed throughout the years. So when I was younger, and I used to ride all these times, I've had 2 GSX-R 750 long-termers, a K8 and a L1. Rode them all around Europe, rode them to Ibiza. I just lived Sardinia, lived on sports bikes. I never thought twice about comfort. Had a tank bag on, lean up against that, rucksack. Don't even think I had a tail pack. I don't know how I used to survive.
Just a couple of pairs of boxers.
Yeah, taking so little with me on holiday and not having a sat nav or anything like that. Where now I just load my bikes up. So in terms of comfort, for a sports bike, it's comfortable. It's got adjustable pegs, which are on their lowest position.
Yep.
And the riding position isn't too extreme with the bars. But now I find, because I'm so used to super nakeds and adventure bikes, that I wouldn't want to do mega miles on it. So I've kind of bought this to be able to not even go out for a Sunday morning ride, more to ride to a track day, do a track day and then ride home again. But then compared to 1,000, on the road, I think it's better, it's more fun because it's more involving. More of the power is available at normal speeds, because you know what it's like, 1,000, it's on tick over unless you're
in first gear everywhere.
Exactly. On track, if you didn't look at your lap times and if there weren't any other thousands around you, it would be the best fun ever. Or you shared a track with a load of other similar bikes. It's amazing because the excitement it gives you, you know what it's like racing 600s because you've done it yourself, you know, you just, the revs are exciting, it's the riding techniques are sort of a hybrid between like V lines in corners, point and squirt, and a bit of a U line to keep the corner speed up. So it's sort of really interesting to ride. But nowadays, compared to 1,000, it's really lacking in power. I mean, if you think this probably makes less than 130 at the back wheel, and a good Panigale,
100 more almost, isn't it?
the Superbike's almost got 100 bhp more. So in this position where, like a modern Phenomena, you take an R7 on the track or RS60, as good as they are, when you're surrounded by lots of faster bikes, I don't like that closing speed, that you know, or being tangled up with other bikes where you're on them in the corners, they go down the straight. So I don't really enjoy that. So that kind of takes away a little bit of the enjoyment for me. And recently I rode my race bike, my S1000RR. I didn't have as much fun as this because it's trying to kill you all the time.
Yeah.
But I like the fact it was so fast, and I like looking at my lap time. But yeah, you just got to, I've got to keep telling myself I bought this bike to enjoy and just ignore everything around me. And when I rode it for the first time at track at Suzuki Live in the summer at Cadwell, there weren't loads of other hairy thousands around me. I was just enjoying it on my own, and I was shaking when I came in. And even by today's standards, you know, we get to ride all these cool bikes, and it still makes me go, wow.
And obviously, how different is it? You said earlier that you haven't had your own like proper road or like a proper bike that you take on track. I presume you didn't take the T-Max on track for over 20 years. How different is it swinging your leg over this bike that you've put all your time, all your money, all your investment in? How different is that rolling out of Cadwell into Hall Bends on this?
It's different, definitely different. I mean, no one wants to, when we ride test bikes, you never ride recklessly or abuse them because you don't want to hurt yourself. You know, it might be different in a car. You got a cage around you, haven't you? So you never want to crash any bike. But I definitely think twice about what I'm going to do on this. So I don't want to smash up my pride and joy. But that feeling only lasts for about half a lap. And as soon as you're out there, you're just constant. That's the great thing about riding, isn't it? It just clears your mind. So I just think about riding it. When I come in, that's when my blood runs cold. And I think, oof, what if?
Got away with it.
What if that had happened? What if that had happened? So yeah, it's a different dynamic to, you know, we're in a privileged position where we get to ride test bikes. But I think that having, you know, the good thing of this as well is when I ride a test bike around a track and have a good time, I know I've got to give it back. I know I can't repeat that experience. And I thought that the first time I rode this, I thought, oh. Then I suddenly thought, oh, I can do that again. I've got my own bike. And it sounds mad, really, because we're in such a privileged position.
How nice is it just being able to ride and enjoy what you're riding rather than thinking on exactly what you need to portray as well? And obviously, like you talked about doing this for, you know, the road bike that you could take to track. What have you done to this bike to sort of give it a little bit more of a modern track element to it?
Well, I didn't want to make it look like a hot rod. I wanted to make it look as standard as possible because I love standard looking bikes, but make a few little tweaks to make it better. So, let's see if I can remember all of this. The gearing is 1 tooth shorter on the front, just to give it a bit of oomph. But to be honest, that's not enough if you really wanted to be fast around the track. It still feels long geared.
Is it quite long?
Yeah, still. Say, for example, at Donington, with the gearing it's got now, third is too lazy out of Redgate. Oh. 2 seconds too revvy. So
you're running first into the hairpins and stuff, is it that?
No, still, no. So if it was a proper track bike, which I don't want it to be, I'd make the gearing even shorter. But this gives it a little bit more pep on the road. Yeah. The suspension is on standard settings, bar a few tiny little tweaks. So the suspension is really good out the box. I've got a spacer in the rear shock.
I was going to say, I heard a rumour that on the old launches.
On the launches, like noughties launches, you used to look down into the shock at the top and they'd all have spacers in them just to make them, which is weird now because the current thinking is to make the bikes as flat as possible rather than put them on their nose, isn't it?
To get them out the corners rather than in.
And I know you're talking about the Supersport versions of these. These are actually jacked up back and front with, I think they have fork extenders in them. So they're fork extenders to allow the thing to be jacked up and then, so the whole thing's higher. But so this is really old school noughties handling on its nose, but it handles really, really well. Supercorsa SP version 4 tyres.
Brilliant tyre.
Brilliant tyre, and probably even too much tyre for this. It's got more grip than power, which is a nice place to be, isn't it? What else have we got? Brakes. It already had the Brembo master cylinder on it, so that's a weak point with GSX-Rs. Yep. Bob put some Hell braided lines on it. It's got standard Brembo calipers, but SBS, they're kind of hybrid calipers that are part road, part track. Yep. I could have put something more tracky in that I usually use for racing, which is like the world stopping. But SBS told me they'd only last about 2,000 miles. So that's no good.
Overkill as well, wouldn't it, really?
But that is one of the bike's weak points on the track. The brakes still really fade.
Really?
So I don't know why, because it's got all the ingredients that it shouldn't fade. So that's something I need to look into over time. So you just have to go out with the span ridiculously too far out, and then after a lap or so it comes back in. But then it doesn't fade any longer.
You need a proper remote adjuster on it, didn't you?
Need a remote. Yeah, exactly. But then you start going down the route.
Yeah, it all starts getting carried away.
Exactly, yeah. And then it had new plugs. It's got a lithium battery in it, which is a little bit lighter. New oil. And I think that is about it. It's pretty standard apart from that. Someone put an Alcantara seat cover on it. So I'm not sure about it.
I quite like that.
It's quite nice.
Pimp.
Of course, that pipe, which doesn't really, I don't think, makes any difference to performance because it's still got the rest of the standard
and you've got the baffle in it as well, so
and
it's not obnoxiously loud.
No, I don't like loud pipes, but the pipe's a work of art. I got that off eBay for 400 odd quid, and it's completely unmarked. I think they're like 1,500 new. So yeah.
No, it looks trick. So obviously you've got this here.
Quick shifter.
Oh yeah.
HM quick shifter, which was already on there.
Nice.
No blipper, obviously, because that's got rubber wire.
So
although the Super Sport bikes had, haven't they?
Yes, yeah. So obviously you're not going to turn this into a Super Sport bike. You're going to keep it as a road bike. What's sort of your plan for it over the next year or two? You're going to keep it?
Definitely keep it. I think this is going to be a keeper forever. As my little sort of, I don't know. Like I say, I don't think a manufacturer will ever build a bike like this again. It runs a bit fluffy at low revs. I want to put it on a dyno to get that sorted out. I'm not exactly sure why. I'd like the braking performance to be a little bit better. Maybe different discs, that might help. Might try racier pads because I'm not really going to do a lot of road miles on it. The suspension, I suppose, the main thing. I'd like to get a race shock and fork internals. Not make them too stiff and racy, but you know what difference that would make. It would just turn easier, it would just ride better, the range of adjustment would be better.
Makes it so much nicer as well, doesn't it? Yeah.
I'd really like to do that and maybe get rid of the cat. You know, get a decat pipe. But I'm not sure if that make it too loud, but I think that will give it an advantage in lightness because this is a light bike anyway.
Yeah.
Make it more agile, maybe a little. It doesn't need any more power. It's not going to gain 50, 60, 70 horsepower to keep up with 1,000. So I may as well keep it similar power because it's more about the handling and the lightness and the fun that it gives me. I've kind of documented the build of this from picking up a dusty shell to it being like this on the series of videos I've done on my channel.
It's been really interesting. I'm so jealous looking at it now. It's just such a beautiful thing. I just wish sports bikes were back in this realm of 120, 130 horsepower, light,
it's the perfect
lacking tech. Even like you look at the dash and it's just beautiful. You know, it's just
very analog, isn't it?
Back up to the red line in a real.
Yeah, the proper. I know.
So you've even got a gear indicator. It's got everything you need on it, hasn't it?
You don't need anything more. I mean, it's got power modes, A and B. I mean, you don't need that.
Does it actually make any difference?
No. But I mean, it's everything. It's just perfect. It's even the colour I like, the condition I wanted. It just has not disappointed me. I mean, the first time I rode it around Cadwell, I must admit, when I came out the first corner, I thought, oh.
Coming up the hill.
Yeah, I thought, oh dear, this isn't, this, you know, being so used to 1,000, but then you just learn to carry more corner speed and that's where the fun comes in.
Do you think that you will outgrow it in that sense? Joe, because you have spent so much time on thousands, you do spend so much time on such big capacity stuff. Do you think you'll get to a point where you go, oh, might just treat myself to L7 Gix 1000?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I don't think I will because even when I think now, okay, shall I buy myself 1,000? Shall I get an S1000 RR? Suddenly you're back into the realm where you're throwing tyres at a bike, and this doesn't eat tyres. Then you start chasing lap times.
Yeah.
Then an S1000 RR won't be good enough, and then you'll think, well, maybe I'll try and get Panigale V4 if I could ever afford one. And then where does it stop? Yeah. This is kind of like a nice glass ceiling for me where I can just sort of enjoy it for what it is really. This is the sweet spot of super sport bikes. So, yeah, mate, I love it. I love it. Absolutely, and I love it as well. It's just brilliant. You know, I pulled the cover off this morning and thought, oh, wow, I own a GSX-R 750. The bike I've been banging on about for decades, and I put my money where my mouth is. No, it's a pleasure. Thank you for bringing it in. I hope you enjoyed it. Please make sure you like and subscribe for more of this content. Thanks very much.